I will try not to get on my high horse on abuse and neglect. My first thing to say to anybody in here, and I say this very wholeheartedly because in all my years of working, you think you won't see it, you will think you never want to see it. At some point in your career, you hate to see it, but you will. Abuse and neglect. Some of it is shady areas, some of it is not so shady areas. Physical abuse is probably the easiest to identify. Hittings, kicking, slapping, pinching, shoving, in any way physically injuring or attempting to injure an individual. That's pretty easy to see. Okay? Anytime you physically put your hands on an individual with the intent of injuring that person, that is physical abuse. Pinching, anything. Now, we do know, those of us that work in the field, and we work with individuals who have significant behavioral issues. You've done it, I've done it. There are times, those of us that are CPI trained, that we do have to response block because we are in the line of fire a lot with individuals who do have significant behaviors, and we do response block. Of course, people like you and me that are CPI trained, we tend to use response block techniques where we use pillows and stuff like this to keep from getting hit. You know, but lots of times we don't have the luxury of grabbing a pillow. So we response block this way, I'm sorry. We response block with our arms, or with our palms, or we use our legs when we're being kicked or whatever. Those are response blocks. You know, we don't punch. We don't kick.
Do we up here, do we have to get CPI trained? I mean, I'm already CPI trained with.
I doubt that they're gonna, first of all, there's only a time frame here where you're 2-on-1.
Okay.
So CPI training is not really gonna do you any good here. Now, y'all do need to get your Q in here and get you trained on management and prevention of aggressive behaviors. You do need to be trained in that. And that's basically just gonna be your maneuver and get out of the way type stuff. But as far as your actual CPI maneuvers where you're gonna do the 2-man holds and stuff like that, you're not. Like y'all had to do.
Yeah.
Like we had to do.
Who do we need to contact to do that?
The QIDP should be able to do that
QIDP.
if you can.
You're so wonderful.
I know. I've been told. Okay. I hate that y'all taking this.
I know.
Okay. I really do.
We've got it on record.
Yeah, I know. I hate that. That's why I'm sitting here thinking, dadgummit, I just said that, didn't I? But physical abuse is pretty. Before I go any further with this, I should have put that little disclaimer out here to start with. Number one, if you don't do this stuff, yay, wonderful for you. That is fantastic. Great. And having said that, if you see somebody else do it, and I know it is difficult because you like your co-workers and you're really good friends, if somebody that does it in front of you and you don't report it, you are as bad as they are. And I know you get to know everybody, and you know that they got kids, and you know that they're your friends and they're your co-workers, and they count on you not to tell it sometimes. But if you see it and you don't report it, you are as guilty as they are. I have worked with some fine staff in my day that needed to work, that had children, that definitely needed a job, and I've had to turn them over. Our individuals can't always tell it. Okay? They cannot always tell it. They count on you. Part of your job description, when you read your job description, is to advocate for these individuals. Your job is to protect these individuals. Your job is to make sure that they have a quality of life. It is not a quality of life if you're allowing somebody to abuse them. That is not a quality of life. And the best rule of thumb, and I'm sorry, it's not a popular stance in this world today to take this view, but this is my view, and you know me, so you know it's the truth. You treat people the way you would want to be treated. You are one car wreck, one head injury away from being right here, right now. Would you want to get out here tomorrow and end up being total care? Is the care that you provide the way you would want somebody taking care of you? Is the care that you're providing the way you would want your child, your mother, somebody that you love being taken care of? You think of that every day when you walk on the job, and you will answer your own question. Is the way you speak to these people the way you would want to be spoken to? If you walked in and this was your child, is this the way you would want them to be spoken to? Because I guarantee you, I've walked in before and went, not if it were mine. Not in 1,000 years if this were my daughter, Not in 1,000 years if this were my dad, not in 1,000 years if this were my mom, would you ever do that. And I've had staff look at me and go, she didn't speak to me first. Nope, because if you'll ever notice when I walk in the door, I'm speaking to the individuals first. That's me. That is me. If you see it happening, it is your job to tell somebody. Physical abuse is the easiest in the world to see. When you start getting into verbal abuse, it starts to get a little bit fuzzier. Verbal abuse, screaming, yelling, cursing. And then it starts getting off those gray areas. The sarcasm, the slander, the demeaning, the threatening. And it's not always just the threatening as in, if you don't go sit down, I'm gonna such and such and such and such. It's stuff as simple as, if you don't get in yonder and take your bath, I'm not gonna let you call your brother tonight. You don't have the power to do that. You don't have the right to take anything away from anybody. Because we just talked about rights. Okay? Unless it's in a behavior plan that says that you can hold something in a behavior plan, you don't have the right to take anything from anybody. If you don't finish doing so and so, you're not going to get to go to McDonald's this weekend. If you don't go in yonder and put your clothes in the hamper, you're not going to the paradance. You can't do that. Okay? That is verbal abuse. That is intimidation. You can't intimidate somebody. Okay? That's abusive. Sexual abuse. And everybody goes, oh, that doesn't happen. Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. You'd be surprised how many I've gone out on that. You'd be surprised how many times I've testified in court on that. Yes, it does happen. You're going to have cases of it where you don't think it happens, but yes, it does happen. And particularly, we've had cases where you have really, really high functioning clients. This happens a lot on the MI side, particularly. But I've seen cases of it because we've got some individuals that are right there on that borderline. But if you know stuff like this is occurring, exploitation is something that really occurs a lot. And this is one you have to watch. You can't take something from an individual. I have, and it's so difficult because I have a lot of individuals that they constantly want to give you things. Constantly. I've got one that'll come in my office all the time. All the time. Every time he comes in for therapy. And he'll always come in the door going, you're just losing too much weight. And I'm like, I'm good, Rick. No, I brought you a pack of crackers and you gotta eat them. You gotta eat them. And he'll put them on my desk. I've got a drawer full of crackers because he's not going to take them back. So every time I go out to his house, I put a little bag of crackers back in. Here, put these back in the drawer. Because he constantly wants to give me something. But then you're going to have staff. Hear me. Folks that work in this house particularly. If they're buying groceries up in this house for these individuals out of their Medicaid money, and you're toting the groceries out of this house home, hey, it don't matter if I grab a pack of hamburger and they can take it home and feed my kids because I ain't got nothing there. You're stealing.
That's right.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
exploitation.
Yep.
If you're up in this house going, hey, one thing of paper towels is not going to matter. If everybody in here totes in out a thing of paper towels, guess what?
You're stealing.
Everybody in here takes out a thing of French fries. That's exploitation because whose money are you taking? It's not hers.
It's Dale's.
It's his. It's his. Okay? You have to watch for this. You have to watch for this. If you've got an individual, and it's not particularly this house, but I've seen it happen in other places, individuals that have their own cell phone and go in there and the staff are all over using their data and stuff on them. I've got an individual right now I'm having to work with because somebody has taken her out and signed her up for a 2-year contract with a brand new phone that she doesn't even know where it is.
Oh.
I'm trying to track back this and find out whose staff it is. You don't think it happens, it happens. And I've got staff everywhere that won't roll over. Somebody's going to roll over. It's just a matter of time. Somebody's going to get mad at somebody. Somebody's going to roll over on it. But it happens every day. Don't let it happen. Do not let it happen. Because eventually it'll come back. And when it comes back, guess who all's guilty? Everybody that knew it. Because if you did it, you did it. And guess what? What's going to happen when you get caught? She knew it. She was here when I did it. Okay, well, you too, because you knew it also. Okay? Neglect. That is another thing. And neglect, please do not think that neglect just means I'm sitting in Mary's room not paying attention to him my whole shift. Well, yeah, that's neglect. I'm not going to give him a bath on my shift. I'm not going to brush his teeth on my shift. Yep, that's neglect. I'm not going to feed him on my shift. I'm not going to do anything with him on my shift. Yes, that's neglect. But you know what? He has training programs in place to help him learn to do other things. If you're not training him, that's neglect. If you're not trying to work with him on improving his behaviors, that is neglect. You have a job to do with him. Medicaid is paying you to do a job with him. If you're not doing your job, that is neglect. The state counts that as neglect. So that's why I said it is so important for you to look at your job description. Know what your job is. Know what you're supposed to be doing. So you don't get hung up on these things. Neglect, that is a big thing. Because it does constitute abuse. And if you don't think they don't look at it this way, I know agencies right now that the state's going in here going, okay, we're looking here and we're not seeing any data on anybody for 4 months. And I'm going, wow, no training for 4 months. And the state's going, you do know that's neglect, right? And it is. If you haven't trained anybody for 4 months, if you can't show where you've done anything for anybody in 4 months, if you're looking at the day logs, got up, took meds, took a shower, went to bed for day logs for months, that's neglect. And you're sitting in your mind thinking, I know they had to have done more than that because I've seen them out places. But if you're not documenting and doing your job, as far as the state is concerned, and the way it looks, that is neglect. Don't get caught in that. And I've seen this house, and I come in and out of this house, and I see y'all out places, and I know what you're doing. I know what you do. The biggest fault in this house is you don't give yourself credit for what you do. Now, I don't know about you guys, you're new. Y'all little newbies up in here. That's why I'm slapping y'all in the face right now. Write down what you do. Give yourself credit for what you do. So that this doesn't come up. Because it has come up in the past. And Valerie's shaking her head because I've slapped them so many times. I've just about took Terry up the tree by the throat. Listen to me. You're doing it. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not writing it down. And if you don't write it down, guess what? You didn't do it. Write down what you do. Give yourself credit for what you do so they don't hang you on stuff like this, okay?
So like simple stuff like taking them for a walk or having them outside with them and having them tone his radio and stuff like that. That's kind of documentation.
Yes, because you know why? When you take him outside, guess what? He is learning about his environment.
Okay.
He is building his, first of all, he's getting fresh air. He's getting exercise. He is learning about his neighborhood. You are giving him the possibility of meeting other people to build his natural support system. He's learning social skills in a public area because he's not running screaming up and down the street. You're doing all these things, and you never even thought about that. You just thought he was taking a walk, right?
Well, yeah, he's checking mailbox and stuff too, so
There you go.
I get what you're saying.
See, all these different things that you've done right there that you didn't even think about except for taking a walk. That's the kind of stuff you need to show. Because that's the things that you're actually doing. Yeah. I mean, anytime you take him anywhere, you're building his social networks. You're teaching him appropriate behaviors in a public setting. Anytime somebody steps out the door, you're teaching them something. Show what you're teaching them. Be creative. Y'all are creative. I know y'all. I know you. You've got such a mouth on you. You could create anything. Be creative. Show what you're doing. Okay?
She's got too much of mouth.
Now, and having said all this, we're going to talk about the philosophy of self-determination, but I'm going to explain to y'all first intellectual disabilities and where all this came from and where we got to today. And then I'm done with you, and you can go home. You from Barry too, ain't you?
I am.
Okay, you going home with me, because you follow me around about it. 100,000 years ago, way back in olden times, first of all, people with intellectual disabilities, these were the first people put to death. I'm talking way back in the middle, because there was something wrong. They were defective. They were defective. And if you had seizures and stuff, you were possessed. I mean, there was something wrong with you. These were the ones put to death. Back during the early days where they were testing chemical warfare and stuff, these were the people they tested it on. If you wanted to see how much it took of the particular chemical to kill somebody, this was your test group. Let's inject them with this much. Okay, it didn't kill them. Let's try it at a higher dose. Nope, still didn't. Let's try it at a higher dose. Still didn't. Guess what? It killed them at this dose. Okay, pitch that one out. Let's try something else. These people were mistreated for so long. They went to the big institutions. If you had a child that had an intellectual disability or a developmental disability, you didn't tell anybody. They just kind of locked away, and you didn't tell anybody. I know during the days when my sister was born, almost every child went to the large institutions. That's where they went. My mother and daddy, God bless their souls, when my sister was born, that's exactly what they were told, because I remember it. I remember it very well. I was 9 years old when she was born. And the doctors telling my mother the day they laid her in her arms, you know they have places for people like her, and she will be well taken care of. And my mother said she certainly will. It will be at our house. You know, because she was beautiful. Down south. Gorgeous. Beautiful. Beautiful little girl. And she did come home with us. And she enriched our lives for a little short time. But we loved her. And she was precious. But a lot of people couldn't do that. We were blessed in that my mother could be there with her and take care of her, but a lot of families weren't, particularly in our area of the woods where everybody coal mined or worked. A lot of people did go to institutions, and that's where they stayed. And conditions in the institutions then weren't good. They really weren't. You had long wards with 40 or 50 people and 2 or 3 staff. We remember those days of the long wards where you were too many patients for everybody to take care of. I mean, the conditions were horrible. And this was in the early 70s, until Geraldo Rivera kind of infiltrated, and they did the documentaries inside, and they decided that it was horrible. I mean, people were being bathed, basically herded into a room like cattle, sprayed down with hoses, wiped down, and brought back out. And this was the way things were. It was sad. It was just sad. I mean, there were a lot of people that trays would be sat down in front of them that couldn't feed themselves and pick back up later on. I mean, I can't even imagine the horror that some of these people lived through until somebody went in and realized just how bad things were. And then, of course, the White Stickney court order went in, where they did realize how bad things were. And that court order, by the way, went on for 30 some odd years. It only settled about, 10 years ago, maybe? Was it 01? I know it was filed back in the 70s, so yeah, it's probably 20, 30 years before it ever settled. That's what changed everything. Because that's when they decided they were fixing to close down the big institutions. And yes, I remember those days, because for those of you who are going, I wasn't even born then. And you better not say it again. Intro music. I came out and started working in 79. About the time they started closing them all down. And that's when everybody went to big, huge group homes. Instead of being in a great, big, huge institution, you came out and went to a 12-person group home, which was basically a little mini institution. You still had too many people in a house, but at least you were in a house instead of a big, huge institution. And that went on for a while. You had big apartment complexes with 27, 28, 29 people in them, but at least you weren't in an institution. But at least by then you had person-centered plans, and things got a little more personalized. At least you weren't in an institution. Now we're at the point where, guess what? Guess how many of the most people you can have in a group home is? You can't say, you can't guess.
Oh,
Don't
my
put
bad.
your fingers
My
on
bad.
it.
3.
3. That's right.
But I thought, I was told you could have 3 and then you could have a 4th one, like a
Respite.
respite, yeah. You have a 4th
But a
one.
respite is just an emergency that comes
Okay, so
in
you can't have
temporarily
3.
and back out. Yeah. Yeah, you can't place more than 3. Now, in having said that, we do have homes like in Fayette. They have one up in Jasper, and they grandfathered those in because those were big homes with like 6 or 7 in them. They did grandfather those in, but you can no longer certify one now with more than 3 people, which is great. Because they don't need to have them any larger than that anymore. But that's where we are today, and that's because we're going to that person-centered philosophy of let's get life as normal, as close to what we see as normal.
So 3 people in
Yeah.
risk.
Because people don't like to be, look, I have an individual that I work with right now, and he's absolutely hilarious, and if you're around him a lot, he'll keep you cracked up all the time, and I remember we went somewhere one day, and we went on one of the Indian Rivers vans, 15-passenger vans, and I was gonna drop him at Walmart, and as we started to pull in, he said, keep driving, and I went, why? And he said, you see that girl right there? I said, yeah. He said, if I get off of this, and he used the word, the retarded word, and we don't use that word, by the way, don't ever use the word retarded. The R word is not a word we use. But he said, because if I pull up on this,
That's Shiloh.
that's y'all's cue.
That is our cue.
I'll get her in a minute. Where did she call and see if we're doing her training today?
She calling you?
She was calling me.
Oh, okay.
Because he did not want me to pull up in front of Walmart because there was a good looking girl standing in front of it. And he said, because she'll know I'm from a group home if I get off this big van. Now, if you think people don't realize they're labeled because we're hauling them around on 15-passenger vans, they do. They do. They know this. I have tried for years to tell the ARC over here in Tuscaloosa, get it off the side of your van. I don't want to pull up on a van that has it marked down the side of it. I'm sorry, the lady from UCP's going, I don't want to pull up on a UCP van. I don't want to pull up on a van somewhere. I used to be extremely heavy. The girls from Berry will remember this. I used to be extremely heavy. I wouldn't want to pull up on a vehicle that says Fat Girls Ride. I don't want to be on it. I didn't. You know, but that, it would be labeling me. It would not be labeled. Would it not be labeled? I don't want to be labeled. I don't. I'm from Berry. I don't want to pull up one that says Hickmobile. But that's, I'm sorry. We know it's the truth, do we not? I'm sorry, we do. Go ahead, roll your eyes. We know. We all know. It's okay. We country, we know. But seriously, our folks don't want to be labeled. And that's what the philosophy of the self-determination is making individuals just be what they are, and that is people, just like we are. They want to be people just like we are. They like the same things. They like these same things. They want a beer on Friday nights. They want to go to the movies. They want to be out here doing the same things we do. They want jobs. They want boyfriends. They want husbands. They want everything that we want. And our job in the whole game plan, and that's the reason we do training, and that's the reason we go out in the community and do things, is to help them get all the things that they want, all the things that we want. And y'all work with guys primarily, but what do you get in one of these facilities and you work with ladies? That's when you're really going to have some fun, because they want exactly what you want. Exactly what you want. You know what I'm talking about. You ever walk around with your boyfriend in front of one of them? Girl! I used to even hate to go around with mine, because she'd be like, but they do, they want the same thing.